9:01 a.m. on October the 5th. We're about to begin our committee for personnel and finance. And we'll start with the calling of the meeting to order. Public comments, number 2. Any public comments in the room? Any public comments in the room? All right. Any public comments on Zoom? Nothing. Close public comments. And Dave, you want to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Any questions on the approval of minutes?
I'll second it, but I have a question. I'd like to make a change. I'd like on number 9. I'd like to change it to 9.9. Where it says 9.8.
Number 9. Item 9.
It's in the third paragraph, correct? Yep.
Is that in the borrowing? Oh, it says 9.8. And you want to make that 9.9 and
If it's okay with, if you guys agree. Those guys agree.
they do agree. It should be 9.9.
That was the resolution, yes.
Changing the motion for the resolution borrowing was 9.9.
We said 9.8 originally when we first started talking about it. And change it to 9.
No other changes are necessary. We have a vote.
I'm abstaining.
I.
Just a note that's not actually on the agenda for the minutes.
It's only amended.
The minutes were approved, but the minutes we put on.
I didn't get
Amended version. Amended version.
That was in here.
I got one in the mail.
Okay, so we've got 4 votes and 1 abstention, 5 votes, 4 votes and 1 abstention. Item 4, which would be the treasurer's budget and Amber copy. Here.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So in short, the county treasurer's office receives and disperses all county funds. We settle with the taxing jurisdictions in the state following all tax collections. We collect second installments for 18 of our municipalities, and then we collect delinquents for all municipalities. And then if a delinquent tax balance remains unpaid for up to 2 years, we can foreclose and then we turn around and sell those properties. In 2024, I'm looking to purchase some headsets for my staff to help balance out call volumes. And then I'm also looking to streamline our certified mailing process within our foreclosure procedures by purchasing label makers. 2 changes since the last budget. I was appointed to the county treasurer position following Mary Krieger's retirement in April. And then we've also implemented a new feature through our tax software that allows taxpayers to opt in for text and email notifications when tax bills are generated, when tax payments are posted to their accounts, when a parcel will fall delinquent, and a reminder notice when those payments are due. I guess I'll open the floor for questions.
Go ahead,
When did you implement that? I'm just curious.
It was late April, early May.
Okay, and have you already seen an uptick on,
We've had some calls
Mhm.
come in and we've gotten people signed up, but I really won't see any effects of that until this billing cycle.
but yeah, that makes sense. Well, good luck with that. Thank
Yes,
you.
I'm eager to see if there will be a decrease in call volumes, since a lot of the times we get calls, they're inquiring about those four notifications that they can now opt in for.
Well, great, thank you.
Any other questions?
On the interest. Some is, we're ahead and some we're behind, I'm just wondering what's the difference, why,
The interest on banking or the,
both Texas and Bacon.
so taxes in general, delinquent taxes are going down. This year we're at 1.16% of delinquencies, which is down a little bit from 1.6 last year. As far as the interest in banking, interest rates are high right now, so right now they're being offset. In the past, when interest rates were low, our banking fees were larger and therefore it was a deficit.
I move to approve.
We're not voting on these. Oh, okay. This is just an update to what we will be now looking at the board meeting. So we won't be voting on any of the budget narratives. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
I thought we had to move to send it to the board, but or we just.
By statute, the executive submits it to the full board, and the full board can make amendments. I just want to provide committees with information, so you're informed and can consider any amendments. You want to make.
Thank you. Mr. Kaiser, your financial reports and be on the budget narrative first, and then we'll go into the reports.
All right, on the finance budget, we're responsible for accounts payable, receivables, budget planning, capital projects and assets, investment of cash, debt, bonding, general ledger and financial reporting. So we just hired I forgot the title, financial associate. So we are fully staffed for our current positions currently right now. So yeah, our 6 people we have in our department. So, but basically there's the only significant changes for finance is with the Department of Administration. We moved out the Tyler Enterprise fees to the administration because it's kind of split between IT a little bit, but mostly HR and finance. So HR had theirs taken out finance and we put in the Department of Administration for that. We are also looking to add a position for a management analyst. Basically, for my thoughts on this position is to become a grant facilitator based in finance that can coordinate and bring all of the different departments together that do grants on their own, bring them together, develop a team to work with the county and create expertise throughout the county, not just department by department. I also want this person to also spearhead what I want to call a countywide finance organization. Right now, I've got 6 people in finance with 1 really experienced person. I've got a bunch of people that are at DHS that probably are more experienced than I have that are in my finance department. I have Doug, who is at Parkview, who has the experience. I want to have this position along with myself work to bring the kind of like the enterprise group together, as this is a group, and then the general fund people together, and this is a group to work together as creating a finance team, not having all our individual doing our things, so we can have maybe redundancy, some people who know how to do things for here and there. So if we lose somebody, we don't lose all the knowledge. So that is what I'm looking and want this position to be, and that is a major increase for the finance department.
As to the revenues and the expenses, do you have anything on that?
For the budget,
Yeah,
not really for,
ads or any ads
the only real ad, like I said, was for the position.
for the position?
Does that, and that 143, 436, that includes wage, benefits?
That's not just for the position, that's for the actual, when we did the bump up for the
Oh,
change.
right, for the
So that's
salary
all the-
adjustments and
That's all
stuff.
the other
Okay,
departments along.
okay,
The salary
gotcha.
position is maybe with benefits, I think maybe around 100. Salary plus benefits. maybe
Okay.
100,
And the rest is just like you said, the salary adjustments that we are doing. Okay,
Already did, yeah.
perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? On to the report, finance department, and that would include the general funds balance, CFP projects report and investment analysis. And then we'll get into the general fund policy. We're not going to be doing that particular line item.
Okay. So, basically, I didn't give any sheet for the general fund, balance and or the investments, because the general fund balance only changed by $100,000, for this month. It was, for the 125,000 that was already approved for the additional money for the highway project 4914. So that was the only change in there. I want to have an update for when we go through and get the bonding done. Along with anything else. I don't believe there's anything else that I know that's going to hit the fund as of this point in time. So the bonding will add that back once that is all approved and taken care of. So there's no real movement in that from last month. Except for the $100,000. The investment, all I did was buy 3 CDs. I haven't looked at doing anything else. My goal is I have a meeting with several people coming up on Tuesday. So I need to start putting more time on the investments, because now the interest rate is up to like 6.3%. So I have some funds coming due in early 2024, in January, February, and March. I also know that's when we also get an influx of cash from the tax payments. So I have to start looking at what I need to do for long term, along with some getting my 6.3% interest on any short term I can. Because that's probably gonna give me a good 6 to 8 months before I have to send the payments back out in August to the municipalities. So that I have 2 or 3 meetings scheduled for Tuesday of next week to work on the investment policy and what type of investments I have, because right now the treasuries are also coming up along with more ability of municipalities. A lot of municipalities like Winnebago County are putting out our bonding. So there's a lot more options of looking at things than we've had before. So that's a good time to invest. Is just, I have to make sure I have cash.
Mhm.
So, right now it looks pretty good, and I can see the payments probably gonna be coming in January with the tax payments. So I feel pretty good on that one. I did do a report, so hopefully it's big enough and readable this month. Basically, I highlighted anything in yellow for the capital projects that had activity since the last time I reported that. So, the Grumman boat landing, talked to Adam on that one, and he believes for the most part that will be done this year. They are running, wiring for, cameras. And he feels because they're under budget, he's gonna look at installing the cameras in there, because that was part of the original, but wasn't totally looked at until now we know we have the money to do it. So he's looking at putting in 3 cameras out there they're all gonna be synced together, I guess. One is for license plate and one is for the parking lot. Since it's a very big parking lot, we don't want people, I guess, eating donuts and whatever else they would do out there. So, that one is doing pretty good. According to Mike, he has started, a little bit on the design of the highway building, but because of the facilities assessment, which he has back. But it's a big task from my discussions with him. There's several buildings that are reached end of life in the assessors or the people who did the survey. So that's going to be decisions, I believe. Some need some major repairs to keep the end of life going. So he's got a major task right now. I'm looking at that and coming up with, possible recommendations. So anything was revolving around roof repair and some of that, it's gonna be, I think, the necessity. If it really has to be done, otherwise it's gonna wait for a decision on what are we gonna do with the buildings and what is our long-term plan? 3, 5, 7, 10 years. So I think that all probably has to be looked at now and he has that survey back.
Is he grouping all of the buildings together, the highway department, and then any other buildings that you need?
I can't totally say. I talked to him yesterday. He said there are some that in their opinion are end of life, so I think he's gonna group the ones that are like, we need to do something and figure out where the people in them buildings should be. Cause it's not worth maybe repairing them anymore. I don't know. I'm just trying to give a little bit of what knowledge I have that he gave me, that there are some buildings that are just, in their opinion, we shouldn't be in them. But.
And there's gonna be, we're gonna get that report apparently in November because, I had the aviation committee yesterday and, the 2 oldest buildings, I think, in the county are actually on the airport. So that's why we get a little privy of kind of a little bit of what we're gonna be seeing, but the facility study will be given to us, I believe, in November. So, we'll be looking at all that. And I think it was a little eye-opening for everyone slightly for some of the buildings, so it'll be interesting to see how all this changes.
Betsy, you're meeting the full report to the board, is that?
Yes, we're gonna start looking at, well, I think we're gonna have to look at them in increments because I think it's quite a large study. Because it takes all the buildings, everything we own.
Yeah.
In the entire county. We did one similar in the school board and it took us multiple meetings to get through it, and there was only 9 of us on that board, so 36 people. It's gonna be a little bit more challenging, I'm assuming, but it should be interesting, and we're such a bigger area.
But that's the overall assessment. that you're
Yep.
trying to
The
show.
overall facility study that we approved, I think last year,
Yes.
it was one of my resolutions.
300,000.
Mhm.
So
A comment there. Just, I did talk to Mike too on Monday, and he thought that we'd have to probably bond for about $3 million a year for several years to get caught up. And he will be presenting that study to facilities at their October meeting. So if you want to get a chance to hear it before the county board meeting, just doing it in the facilities, because he will be actually presenting it to them.
Yeah, I just didn't want to do it right with budget, is what I was told, because it's a little overwhelming to do budget and facilities all in one.
yes. So, otherwise, he did tell me that they are building the, or fabricating the building, steel building for the sheriff's boathouse offsite. And that is moving forward. So, that's pretty much all he has told me on that one. The county parks, but the supervisor Bender on they're done paving what they can pave for the money that they have left in the project for doing the paving of the parking lots. I think that still leaves 4 of them that have yet to be paved. That's going to be part of probably the next project, as the whole project for park system is looked at and moving forward. The expo center is pretty close to being done. He has lights he's putting in, and he also is gonna put in a couple cameras now because he has additional money, so he's gonna be able to do that also at that facility. Dispatch council at the sheriff's department is pretty close to being complete. From my understanding, they have some ergonomic furniture to purchase yet for that project, otherwise that should be closed. I don't know if there's anything else of any other questions that people may have. I did, okay, municipal payout of 145,000. I know I'm gonna discuss this tomorrow at ARPA in more detail. But we have paid out 4 so far. 3 of them are getting sent ACHs today, so they should get their funds tomorrow, so that'll be 7 that have been paid out. 3 of the municipalities had decided to do county road work, so that'll be 10 of the 21. I have received information from all but 2. I have not received any communications from the city of Oshkosh. Okay, that's 1. Yesterday, I did get a phone call from Village of Fox Crossing. And I can't pronounce the I received an email from them yesterday, but have not had a chance to review any other documentation. So I did receive an email from the city of Neenah saying they'll get me the documentation in a couple of weeks. So more detail at ARPA tomorrow if you want to tune into that, or if you have any questions, I can go into more detail.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead.
On the boathouse, I heard now we're gonna accept it the way it is, and we're basically not gonna take it to court because it would cost over $20,000 probably to prove our point. So is that correct?
I'm gonna default. Like, I don't know that.
I don't know that a definite decision has been made, but I certainly see it that way. The boathouse is fully functional the way they built it. The deviation relates to what might happen if there's an accident, if a boat runs into it or something. A much bigger repair bill will be required because of the way it was built that did not comply with our specifications.
Right, I was told there's supposed to be a sea channel,
Yeah.
and the walkway, you could take the walkway up without lifting the boathouse. The boathouse is welded to the channel. Now the boards go underneath the boathouse, so in order to basically replace the walkway, like a board would crack where you walk in to get into the boathouse, now you're gonna have to cut that boathouse loose, raise that boathouse up to get that board out. And that's not the way the plan was drawn out, but that's the way they built it. And it's a major deal to redo it, and Radke basically doesn't want to redo it. And I was told it would cost like $20,000 to take him to court to make him redo it. And it would take substantial amount of time, so that more than likely, we're just gonna accept it the way it is.
My experience, and I did 13 years of that kind of litigation, 30,000, 20,000 is too low an estimate.
Okay.
It would be more than that. And who knows what the result would be, whether we get something. We'll look into disqualifying the engineer as well as the construction firm. That's definitely.
And none of us will probably be here when that ever happens. I mean, it'll be a whole new board, it'll probably take 20 years for the boards to crack. But when they do, they're gonna say, well, why would they build something like that? And we didn't build it like that. Our architect drew it different. He just didn't follow the plan.
Right.
Will our DNR let them make those kind of changes?
I don't think it affects the DNR approval because it's still the same footprint and the impact on the waterways is exactly the same. It's just a matter of if there is an accident, it'll cost us a lot more to repair it someday.
Well done. Okay. One. Good. Anything more on that?
That's all I had.
Okay, thanks for the update. I think we're going to withdraw item 7 until a future date. You want to wait for a month? Or do you wanna wait for 2 months? What do you wanna do on a policy?
Definitely more than a month. 2 months. You'll maybe be able to have a draft together in 2 months. I mean, with the budgets coming up with all of that. And the county board, a month is not gonna be enough, and I wanna focus on getting investments more so. Cause I haven't done much on investments in the last 2 months, so I would say 2 months would be, we'll definitely.
Mike? Are you in agreement with making a stab at, fund balance policy within 2 months?
Yes, I am.
Everybody else, we're gonna withdraw that.
And you don't have the updated version of the agenda, it's number 6.
I'm sorry, folks, we did update the agenda and put it out there twice.
Right, I was just saying if you didn't have the copy of the updated, that it's number 6.
I hear you. No, it's number 6 on what you have before you. Okay, it's number 7 on mine. So we're gonna withdraw that one and we're gonna go on to number 8. The update on the administrative or the administration budget.
Well, the Department of Administration hasn't had a full year of budget experience yet since department was created, slightly over a year ago, last July, I believe, by the county board. So 2023 will be the first full year. The changes projected for 2024 are mainly 3 things that are moving into this budget that have been in other departments' budgets. So first of all, the leadership training, we had 2023, $50,000 was budgeted for leadership training countywide. In the miscellaneous and unclassified budget, that probably wasn't an ideal place for it. I think it makes more sense to move to administration budget, or can be more directly managed as a department budget. So that was moved to the administration budget and increased to $75,000. And that's to cover really leadership training for department heads, deputies, managers, supervisors throughout the county. So it's not by any means just for the administration departments, 3.5 FTE. So that's certainly been a priority of county management lately to improve leadership training, management training. It's not something that made a priority in the past, and so there are a lot of needs in that area, and I think it's going on. The biggest change relates to the Tyler, what we call the Munis budget. And technically, it's not called Munis anymore. It's Tyler ERP or something like that. But it's the software. It's our enterprise software, so it includes all the financial software we use, includes all the HR software. When I say all, I don't really mean all, but I mean it contains all our employee information. It contains all the payrolls processed through the Tyler program, et cetera. So it's an extremely important program for us. In the past, we pay quite a bit of money every year for the licensing for it and updates. We underwent a major update this year. We hadn't done an update for 5 years, which was unfortunate. It got delayed for various reasons. The entire budget used to be split up among 3 departments. That's not a good way to manage budget. It doesn't really do the county any good to have it split up and have HR pay $60,000 and finance pay $80,000, et cetera. So we moved $194,000 into the administration budget to cover the whole thing. That way it's centralized. We have had sometimes, not disputes, but departments move in their own silos. And so I've got this and I'm doing this for Tyler and I'm doing that. Now it's all under me, frankly, and the departments that use it, all the costs are in my budget, so they don't have to worry about that. They can get what they need. And so the same is true for the training. We're purchasing additional training from Tyler to support the functions we have not always used. Well, a lot of opinions about the Tyler program, and I've long had opinions that certain parts of it, especially the HR parts, are not great and haven't been as functional as they should. But with the upgrade, we have a lot of things that we should be improving in terms of how we use it. A lot of the concerns I had have been addressed by the upgrades. Hopefully addressed. We haven't completely found out how well addressed yet in all of the areas, but because of that, we need to have trainers come in and actually look at how we use it. Do an audit, first of all the different modules that we purchase, because we pay quite a bit of money for them. We found some already we pay for and don't really use. We have to decide if we're going to use them or not. And if not, stop paying for them. But also, how do we use it? How do we move, for instance, the budgeting feature 10 years ago when I started for labor budgets, very weak. We did labor budgets that way for 2 years. The second year when I was here, and it was a disaster. Everybody hated it. Departments were always complaining and the budgets were very inaccurate because it really wasn't flexible enough to do what we wanted to do. Now it's I know that area has been quite a bit upgraded. So we need to explore that. See if we want to move labor budgeting into municipal. So we need their help. We need someone from Tyler to come and spend probably a couple of days figuring out how we do budgeting for labor budgets. And some other things like that. We can use it better for recruiting and onboarding. We can use it better for keeping training records, things like that. So there are a number of projects we want to do. And anyway, we moved $18,000 into the administration budget. It's again not going to be just for administration. It's going to be to support HR, finance, IT, whatever our Tyler usage is. So that did make the budget increase quite a bit, but those are the three areas that primary change. There's no change in personnel. We have two managers, the risk manager and the purchasing and contract manager in the Department of Administration. Then there's one full-time person in general services who's part of the Department of Administration, and we have a half-time administrative associate that we share with the executive's office. So those are all filled now. We have had turnover, especially in the general services area. We had a very long-term employee leave, and so we've had 2 turnovers this year of that position, but I think we've stabilized it.
What is your total number?
The total, including general services, is well, that would be 4.5 FTE.
Is the risk manager full-time?
Yes,
Is he have enough to do?
he has more than enough to do. In fact, my main task for the administrative associate is to help him out. He covers 3 areas. He covers all our workers' compensation program,
Okay.
and dealing with all those reports and claims, and dealing with the lawyers, dealing with the adjusters. He does our property and liability insurance. And again, dealing with all the claims, dealing with the adjusters, dealing with the renewals. And filling out reports, filing information. And then he also does safety program. And so the paperwork for the insurance has been, kind of swamping him a little bit. He's got a safety background. He doesn't really have an insurance background. He has a safety background. And he does go out to different departments. He goes out to highway or human services or water facilities, wherever, and helps them with their safety programs. I really want him to upgrade that effort, do more in safety, get the administrative associate to take over some of the paperwork, but he's got more than enough to do.
And that makes sense. That's his wheelhouse too. So that seems like that would be his. I just want to thank you for this because this was kind of our goal, I think, as a board when we approved this department to begin with, is to, I know this is the term we've used over and over and over, but break down the silos and try to figure out how we can work together and not duplicate things. I feel like, maybe with this and how you're doing this, that we won't see as many duplications and we won't see, so forth and so on with us. So I'm happy to see that the Tyler Technologies stuff is in yours, and then being able to bring some training in, because you can have a wonderful program. If you don't know how to use it, then it's pretty useless to you. So I'm happy to see that and to be able to analyze and do an audit and figure out what we need to get rid of that we're not using. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's exactly what this was intended to do with your department. So thank you.
I guess my question would be, like the travel budget, you went from 4,300 to 79,000. You have something planned for that?
Oh, that's the training budget. That's the leadership training I was talking about. So that's 75,000 leadership training and 4,000 in travel and training for the administration
You got travel on
department.
there.
Well, it has to be in the travel budget under the code because the travel budget includes what's the term? Just looking at it. The,
So you have like training sessions.
Yeah.
This is the
registration, tuition and all that is included, so we want to keep that all together. So all the training budgets are in, unless we bring someone in here. All the training budgets are in the travel category. Okay, so that's why we put that there, because it's really to send people to leadership training, so a lot of it's online now. But the registration and tuition has to be in travel, because that's the budget category set up by the board.
So that is an actual real figure, it's not a guesstimate.
It's 75,000, which is kind of a guesstimate, to be honest. It's just setting aside that money, but that's to be used county-wide. So it's less than, it's just over 4,000, including lodging and registration, tuition and auto, which is for the people in the administration department.
For the 4.5 FTE.
Yes.
You divide that between those 4.5 people.
Yeah.
Not the 75 though.
I'm looking at the entire financial summary, and you're top heavy with a lot of expenses and very little revenue to support it.
Yes.
I'm saying big levy.
It's true, we don't have a source of revenue other than a small contribution from solid waste.
Yes, ma'am.
Once again, that 75,000 is for, if I'm not mistaken, for all the departments, not just the department administration, correct?
Correct, 75,000 is countywide,
Right.
4,000 is divided by our 4.5.
4.5 people. So that was what I was trying to make sure clarify on that one, because I know that you had said that earlier.
Correct.
It's clearly then the entire county, whoever wants to go to these training programs can sign up through you.
Yeah.
Else. Okay,
I do have 3 other subsidiary budgets. Should I go ahead and address those briefly? There isn't too much to talk about. Workers' compensation budget is handled by the administration department as well. This is, all 3 of these others are what we call internal service budgets. They don't affect the tax levy directly. We bill these expenses to the operating departments essentially. So they don't directly affect the levy, but those charges on departments that often obviously do affect the levy, but indirectly. So the workers' compensation, obviously it's something we have to do. We're kind of unique as a local government in that we're self-funded for workers' compensation insurance. Workers' compensation generally is required for every employer in the state over 10 employees, except for local governments. So we can be self-funded. And it's much cheaper to be self-funded. I've done that analysis several times, and it's, we pay about 60% of what we do if we had to be fully insured probably. But I may talk to someone later this month about that as well, just to check in and make sure those numbers are still the case.
Don't we have an insurance that covers us if it runs way over or something?
We do. We buy stop loss insurance as part of that. So we pay all the claims, and then for something over $500,000 for one injury, then we have insurance to cover that, because I've seen workers' compensation claims that are $4 million, you know. We haven't had a claim over that limit in over 10 years, knock on wood, but it's still very expensive to buy that coverage. But yeah, we certainly have that. We have to file a report with the state every so often. We have to have the board pass a resolution confirming our self-funded status. We do have a fund balance that carries over, so we make charges to departments. We don't really know what the claims are going to be. You know, if Paul falls down the steps tomorrow and breaks a few bones, then we have to pay for that. We have no way of predicting that.
I take the elevator.
Not paying for your arm. You did that before you.
The cable snap.
You never know what might happen. You'd be amazed what relatively innocuous situations have led to some significant dollars in that fund. But it does vary quite a bit. I mean, I've seen it, the claims at 200,000, I've seen them at 1 million. So it's hard to predict. We predict the claims. We have a fund balance of about 2 million. I predict the claims every year based on a 4-year weighted average trended forward. So we do that. We have a lot of administrative expenses. We have to pay the adjusters. You know, we have to pay for the stop loss coverage over 500,000. We pay for, you know, some people to review the bills and try to save us money and they get a percentage. We have to pay the lawyer because every year there are claims that go to, they don't go to court, they go to an administrative law judge. But they go to hearing and we need attorneys for that to resolve the disputed claims. So there are various expenses. A portion of the risk manager's time is billed to that, portion is billed to property and liability. So all those expenses are rolled in and then we bill it out to departments. And the way we bill it to departments is unique too. The way workers' compensation works in Wisconsin is the state department actually calculates a base premium. And it's not just based on overall revenue or expense, it's based on wages by a particular category of employee. You know, so a clerical employee, Julie does not have the same risk of injury as a highway worker does. You can understand that. Even though, you know, you never know, like I said. So there's a different premium rate for different categories of employees. So we start with the state premium rate. But then I figure out how much we really need. And basically, if the state says, you know, we need the premium rate based on our projected wages, budgeted wages are going to be, you know, $2 million. I look at it and say, I only need 900,000. So I'm only going to multiply those state rates times about 40% or whatever it may be. I'm just kind of making up those numbers. And then I apply that rate to each employee line by line in the labor budget. When we calculate the labor budget for each department. Yeah.
All those cases carry on for 7-8 years.
I've known some of them longer than that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Recent memory, we've had 4 or 5 years several times.
Because I had an injury to my back one time and 8 years later, I got a check in the mail for $850.
And even when you think they're done, it could come back because, you know, you may have an injury. You think you're healed and it's all resolved. And then 3 years later or 5 years later, you might have more symptoms. Go back to the doctor and the doctor may say that's attributable to that same accident. Therefore, workers' comp has to pay again. So it's definitely need some experts to help us with those claims.
Now, will the Tyler Enterprise, do they have a section in there that will help you more so you don't have to input? I mean, are you inputting for each salary range or position? Because it's based on that. So will the Tyler Enterprise, I mean, was this one of those aspects of this program that could help you with the upgraded program?
It could. Tyler won't calculate the premiums or the workers' comp budget. But then it goes into the budgeting process to develop the labor budgets for each department, and Tyler could definitely help us with that. Now, 10 years ago, when I saw this labor budget wasn't working well at all, I basically developed these spreadsheets. And yeah, it's a monumental spreadsheet with a lot of bells and whistles, and I sit down and you know, I take Julie's department as one of the simplest ones. You know, we export from Munis some basic data about all her positions and current employees, what their current pay is. And it also goes into a spreadsheet and then it calculates what the overall increase is going to be by employee. And it calculates, you know, we have merit pay, it calculates that separately, whatever our expected increases are. It calculates all the benefits, calculates the health insurance based on current enrollment and what the county's share of premiums will be. And if it's part-time, it automatically figures those numbers. Dental insurance, the Wisconsin retirement, the you know, and workers' comp and other fringe benefits. Workers' comp, unemployment. No, we don't do unemployment comp that way. It's which one am I missing? FICA. That calculates all out employee by employee. So if we want to change an employee, we can figure out what the numbers are. You know, if we have a motion to eliminate a position from the TO, Mark can pull the spreadsheet and tell you what the total number is going to be and how much it affects every different object account from the spreadsheet. Now, Tyler could definitely help us with that if its budgeting process is now sophisticated enough to do that. You know, because we got used to that level of detail. But Tyler does have, for instance, the category. Like I said, the type of employee is already included in the Tyler program.
Matter of just inputting numbers or, yeah, that's wonderful.
So, but we have to calculate the premium.
Okay. Did you want to get to general services?
Yeah, just briefly, general services basically handles printing functions and mail for the county. So we've really decreased the amount of things we do through general services. We outsource most of the mailing now. That was done several years ago. They're still, they still handle mail for the courthouse currently. We're gonna look in how we do that. We might bring the general services person over to this building, because there's really more need in this building than there is in the courthouse now. That's changed. They do things like print the budget books that you're trying to get. The printing is a bigger deal. They have room in the basement of the courthouse. Departments have been relying less and less on our in-house printer to do things. They can either do it on their own copier or they send it out somewhere. Those are options as well. So we have been doing less and less, and we're going to be continuing to evaluate that. Maybe it's cheaper and faster to send the budget book out to a local printing company, for instance. So we're not looking to invest a lot more in that, maybe bringing a lot more of it over here. It is a separate fund because it's all billed out to departments. They get charges assessed against them in the budget. Big issue is going to be, they also handle the copiers throughout the county. So we have a very large copy contract for 5 years to put a list, we have a list of equipment we lease. They come and put the printers, the copiers in all the departments as we specify. We pay them for it. Big contract, it's a 5-year contract, so it's expiring next year. So the biggest project is going to be renegotiating a 5-year contract or whatever the term may be, for copiers throughout the county. So we'll put out bids. We may or may not hire a consultant to help us with that. We have been approached by a consultant. We've had good reports of who will do it on kind of a contingency basis on savings that might be able to produce by understanding the leasing business better than we do and negotiating that. We're not sure if we're going to do that or not. But we did set aside some expense in the expense budget for that, I think $30,000. So that's an unusual item that we may or may not spend. And if we do spend it, it'll only be because we got a savings in the contract price. We haven't determined the exact terms or scope of that yet. But it's there. So it is showing a deficit currently of 80,000. 30 of that is really coming from that consultant. So we're going to have to continue to analyze that. Do we have to increase charges to departments? If we do, is it more cost effective to go outside? Do we need to find something else for this person to be involved in? Because I don't know, frankly, that she really does have a full day. She's relatively new in this position, but been very happy with the current person. And I think we may get that person involved in electronic document storage generally for the county, which is an area a lot of departments struggle with. There's a lot of need in that area. We can find somebody to call this person that if we don't have enough of it to do.
Mike, what does it come under as far as contract services?
Yeah, it's in, let me check, which it's either 55014 or 55030. Yeah, it's 55030 under contractual services. So it shows $70,000, which is $30,000 increase from the original request.
These are separate budget lines or detail for general services. We don't have general services in their outlines here.
You have a budget for
I have
620 general services.
I have general budget, the general fund for the administration budget narrative. That's it.
Right.
I don't think we have all of the data.
Is there an amended one? Is that the amended one?
We've got
See, I don't have your actual packet, so I'm not sure what's in your packet. I thought this was in there. So you don't have a separate budget or
We
narrative?
don't have separate workers' comp, property and liability insurance or general services. We do have the administration department. And the detail.
Well, there are separate numbers for each of those, so I apologize if those aren't in your packet.
Sorry about that.
We'll have them soon, correct?
Won't be in the budget book. No. I mean, I can send them to you by email.
So we, get a chance to review them.
Sure.
Appreciate it. So we go on from there to Mr. Havik.
Did you want to cover property and liability at all?
I certainly can, although there's very little to say on property liability. Covers liability insurance for the county generally. There's some specialty lines. For Parkview and the airport in particular. We have crime coverage in place of bonds in case Julie absconds with the county treasury. No, she can't do that. Maybe I am. I'm just kidding. We have to have some bonding or coverage for elected officials. That's all I'm saying. We also carry property insurance. Building insurance, just like your homeowner's policy might. The boiler is a separate coverage because of the expense of those systems. So there are a number of different specific coverages. You basically use two different brokers, if you will. One isn't really a broker, it's the county mutual liability insurance company. They're our main liability carrier. So it's quite a bit of money. We pay them every year. If we have any sort of liability claim, we call them. Mary Ann's office, court counsel gets in touch with them. They may sign an attorney even before there's an actual claim if we are concerned that there might be, just to make sure we're well prepared for it. They defend us in court, they pay the claims. We do have a substantial deductible. We have $100,000 deductible, so most of the time the expenses are on us, even though they handle it, they end up billing us for it through the deductible fund. What we do is we have a deductible fund where we gave them $250,000 and they use that to pay the attorneys, pay the claims adjusters and so forth. And then as they use it up, it goes at the end of the year to recoup that. So the amount to recoup that is included in the property liability insurance budget as well as the actual premiums. We do include a portion of the risk manager's time budgeted in that department. There haven't been any significant changes. Again, we calculate, the only significant changes I did redo the spreadsheet that we've used to calculate how to allocate the charges among all the different departments. So it's just a matter of kind of discarding things we don't really do anymore and simplifying it a little bit. Not a major change. Premiums are the premiums. Insurance market has not been kind lately. We don't know the actual renewal costs because we don't have them yet. But meeting with one set of insurers in a couple of weeks and the other one, I think, at the end of the month to get some renewal numbers. We have computer security liability. If someone hacks their computer, there are a lot of different coverages involved. On property, we do have some self-insured retentions as well. For instance, the auto damage, we just self-insure for that. They handle the claims. Get insurance coverage for the property damage to our cars and small vehicles. Big trucks at highway are a different matter. Those could be hundreds of thousands. So they are scheduled on our property. So again, Joel spends a lot of time just assembling all these lists of property there that having to be covered. So we have a 5% premium increase built in. I did talk with them before putting that in to make sure that was reasonable. We don't have the exact numbers, but they're going to be in that range in the ballpark. And we do have a fund balance, so we won't make new charges to departments if the number comes in a little higher or low. We just take that into the fund balance and adjust just for that next year, if the fund balance gets too high or too low.
Steve, you have something on eyeglasses? You wanted to bring up? Right. All right, you covered everything?
Yes.
Maybe we can get copies of budget detail for those different departments.
I will send you those things to the committee.
Thank you. Me too. I'm part of the committee. All right, we can move on to Mark Hibbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm gonna assume that I'm probably gonna have to, email you. We may have run into the same thing as far as health and dental, because we do have, if that wasn't in your packet, I'll make sure to email that to the entire committee as well. Let's start off with, as far as the human resources budget. Well, I think you guys have seen a lot of it in the past year, so you know, we've, as a department, been working on some pretty big projects this year. Implementing recommendations, regarding the compensation study. As far as budgetary impacts to our department, this budget does request the addition of a permanent payroll and benefits specialist position into the budget. As part of that,
A specialist position for what?
payroll
Okay,
and
so-
benefits, yep.
Didn't we just do that?
We added a project. It wasn't permanent, it was just a project position.
So
So,
you're taking away, you're taking away the administrative assistant that you had. And you're now making that a payroll and benefits position, is that correct?
the committee had approved the project payroll and benefits position that ran through the end of this year. With the idea that that position, we're gonna include in this budget. So in addition to adding that position, we're also eliminating a part-time administrative associate position from our budget.
That was the person that was taking care of our agenda and our minutes, is that correct?
No, the part-time administrative person that's being eliminated. That was actually helping mainly with some Parkview functions. And helping manage that, so. No, the only position being added is that payroll and benefits moving from a project position to a regular position. So.
We're still trying to find what happened to, the position that was taking care of the minutes and the.
But we still have the human resource associate 2 position, that hasn't changed. Just based on conversations regarding how minutes were gonna be handled. Right now, the county clerk's office is handling that, but we didn't change the position.
That office is not gonna have them forever. Mark, we are trying to establish the connection we had before in the personnel office. Okay, and the human resources office, and I am looking at the TO, and trying to figure out what happened to that position. That position should still be there.
We still have that position. There's a person working in that position, right?
Okay. They will. Okay, so
So with this budget, we're requesting to make that project payroll position. A permanent position, which would add a full-time position to human resources. But also then you'd be eliminating 1 part-time administrative associate. And then we had originally proposed adding some dollars in for an intern. And again, we took those dollars out to try to help balance out. So our main change to our budget as far as increase is in labor. And that's a combination of the pay adjustments from the reslotting as well as the changes from adding the full-time, taking out the part-time.
Will that add, how will that add to our total personnel? Will that add, if we had 1,450, now will we have 1,451, as big as the, it was, or what?
Well, last year, we had 11 positions in human resources. We had 9 full-time and 2 part-time. We'll still end up with 11 positions next year, but it'll be 10 full-time and 1 part-time.
Okay.
So from an increase standpoint, labor is the main change, but then from a decrease standpoint, you'll see again that data processing on the significant changes going down over 57,000. That corresponds with what Mike was talking about regarding that Tyler ERP software. We had been dividing the support and the software fees among several departments, and now those are all being consolidated under the Department of Administration. So it's lowering my budget, but it's actually being shifted into the Department of Administration. So
It's actually what?
it's actually being shifted over to the Department of Administration. So it's not as though that I'm actually saving the 57,000. We just move those funds over to the Department of Administration. Are there any other questions regarding human resources specifically? Otherwise, I've got a couple.
I got one question.
Yeah.
I guess if Julie's gonna be taking our minutes forever, and every director decides that they don't want to supply a person, then we're gonna have to add a person to that office. You know, is that your intention, never to have anybody from your staff take the minutes of this meeting and set the agendas and help with the words or whoever might be the chairman? Is that the goal? And that's gonna be eliminated from your office? And it's gonna be permanently assigned to the clerk's office? Because if that's the case, rather than giving you the position, maybe we ought to give the position to the clerk's office.
Well, I'll say that the change really was instigated based on conversations that were had with chairman, myself, county executive, and ultimately in discussing between, the executive, county clerk's office. Right now it's landed with the county clerk, so it's not necessarily whether it's my intention or not. I don't make those final determinations as far as who's gonna take minutes, and there's multiple departments, obviously, that report directly to personnel and finance. So whether it's someone from human resources, whether it's someone from finance or, a different department that reports to TNF. I know historically it's come from human resources, but I guess I would kind of defer, say that's really conversation I would suggest having with the executive.
Because we might be setting a precedence here where now every department's gonna say, we're not providing any staff for that. Well, then eventually Julie's gonna get overwhelmed. She can't take minutes and set this up for every committee and commission in this county. So either we have to draft a resolution that basically states a department provides the service to the committee, or we should add a position to Julie's, because I can see it already happening, that they're gonna say, well, they don't do that. We don't have time for that either. Our staff is busy. This morning, it's gonna be 3 hours for somebody's time to do this. Our clerk is sitting here taking this, and I'm sure she's got a full-time job before she had this. So it's like, I don't know what direction we should take, but I believe that if this is gonna be a standard procedure, it's gonna spiral, and if we should do anything, we should take the position that you want and add it to the clerk's office, because they're gonna be doing the work for all the departments eventually.
Well, regarding the specific position that we're requesting to add, keep in mind, without that position, we have one person that does payroll for the entire.
And that person did it her entire life until she retired. And then now it takes 2 people to do the work that one did, correct? You told me that personally.
It takes. We have no or very little redundancy. If that person is out sick, if that person, we hang on a thread as far as payroll.
But that's happened in the past, has it not? That you've had people out sick and rotated them around and had the work been done in that
We have
manner?
not missed payroll, to my
Alright.
team's credit, but that doesn't mean that we're not at risk of having that happen. And as we continue to add duties and complexity into payroll, you know, everything from shift differentials and, you know, all these different things that we try to incorporate. It keeps adding complexity into the position, which all continues to take more and more time. You know, that's one, and yes, certainly when you've got someone who's been with the county 40 years, that retires, there is a lot of institutional knowledge that leaves. But I still don't think it would be the best practice for the county to, we're exposing ourselves to a risk that I think we can relatively easily avoid by adding some capacity. And I think missing a payroll, you know, isn't something that we ever want to have happen. Yeah. We're fortunate it hasn't happened yet. And really that's one of the main reasons for adding the second payroll person. The payroll person and that position, that position never had anything to do with taking minutes at meetings. So, I mean, that's really.
Excuse me, Joan and Jenny both had to do with taking minutes at the P&L.
Individual people, yes, but the positions that they are in now, those positions we have never had a payroll specialist sit down here and take minutes. So we've had, you know, human resource associate down here, but Joan promoted out of that position. And then when Jenny took that position, Jenny was doing that. Jenny's been promoted out of that position. So, you know, it's not about the people, it's about the positions. So payroll positions haven't been taken committee minutes. Other questions regarding the human resources budget? The next two budgets are similar as to what Mike explained for workers' comp and property and liability insurance. Both the health insurance and dental insurance are internal service budgets. We fund these on charges directly to employees as well as departments. There's not a direct levy charge. As far as the health insurance is concerned, and again, I will make sure to send you similar information on health insurance so that you have that. But overall, we have saved some money by changing our vendors on who does our health risk assessments. And each year we meet with our benefits consultant. We do an annual review of our plan design, potential savings that are out there. We also do regular claim reviews periodically throughout the year. See where our claims are, if there's ways that we can try to mitigate some of those expenses. And right now we've got a fund balance, net the liabilities of about just over $4.3 million in our self-insured fund balance. Looking ahead to next year, we are looking at some increases to the revenue side, because for the first time since 2000, we're looking at increasing premiums. Small increase, 3.2%, which works out to about $8.33 a month for a full-time employee on a family plan. And one of the reasons why we want to do a small increase is because over the last 3 years that we haven't been doing any type of increases, we have been balancing things out by moving that fund balance down a little bit. It was fairly high So we are in essence passing on some of those savings back to departments and employees that had paid into that fund. But we also don't want that fund to get too low. And we don't want to have a year where suddenly we're looking at significant percentage changes. So the idea is that we would rather do a smaller increase, perhaps more periodically, than suddenly have to be at a 12-15% or more increase. Yes.
And a 3% increase is so low compared to the average. And then, is there, curious, with the self-funded health insurance, is there a minimum that we have to have legally in a fund like that in order to maintain it? I was just curious.
No, good question. There is not a legal minimum. Self-funded health insurance is actually very lightly regulated, I would say, that there aren't very many requirements.
Not percentage wise of amount that has to be, you have this amount of employees, you have to have this percentage of, you know, accessible funds. I don't know.
I've talked to a lot of people, and I know there are a lot of counties and cities that should be, in my opinion, self-funded, but they're afraid to be because the management has to be done carefully.
Right.
Because it's not laid out there for you. You have to figure out how to do it. You have to do it very responsibly, or you're gonna run out of money. I remember starting the job in Sheboygan County, 2 months in, and the accountant came and said, our health insurance fund is more than $1 million in the red. Mike, what are we going to do? No, you should never be in that position.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it does have to be very carefully managed, and we spend a lot of time and effort doing that. It's an $18 million item, so it's not a low priority for us.
Yeah, yeah,
But there are no requirements. No, there are our own requirements. There are prudential requirements.
right.
You know, you have to, that, for instance, is the number of net of liability, but there's about $4 million in liabilities at any given time because, you know, if you go to the doctor today, how many months is it before the insurance actually pays the bill?
Yeah.
A couple months on average.
Mhm.
So there's 3 months at least of run out that have to be accounted for, and then a long tail after that. So we have to do the accounting fairly carefully. We have consultants that we pay good money to help us with that. And
And a 3% increase is so minimal. I mean, the majority of the private industry right now, you're looking at anywhere from 10 to 60%.
the trend,
increases.
we just met with our consultants yesterday. They're using a trend of 7% currently on medical claims and 9% on prescriptions. So that's obviously more than double what we're putting in for this year alone, but especially I think that's impressive when you consider we have not raised that rate since 2020. We've had 3 zeros. And the rate for 2020 was a small increase over 2019. 2019 was a big increase over 2018, about 13%. But that means, you know, a 5-year increase is about 5%. Averaging less than
Mark, you do a great job, but I can't believe you can't find somebody in this organization that could be a secretary. Just my opinion. I mean, there has to be, I mean, of all these employees, I mean, I sit on different committees throughout the years. There's a lot of very capable secretaries. Do they know everything about finance right this minute? No, but they would adapt very quickly. Just my opinion.
Thank you. I just got a comment. I mean, we've been self-insured and went to insured. This is like our 3rd time, I believe, that we're self-insured. What happens sometimes is we get a lot of under $500,000 claims and it basically runs out of money. And then we went basically and bid it back out. And then I believe this is our 3rd time that we went self-insured. But I know in the past, I worked at the county 24 years and our insurance used to switch just about every year. And we would go from self-insured and it would last about 6 years and then Mark would basically bid it out. And there'd be a big pile of money left in there. And then when the rates got too high again, then we'd go self-insured. This is probably the longest we've been self-insured.
It all depends on changes in the health industry, you know, and what that market looks like. And in Wisconsin, we have a very unusual healthcare industry, I think, and that the provider systems are very strong compared to the insurers, more so than in almost any other state. So it's very interesting, and it's really what their attitude is that determines whether it makes sense. When I came here 10, 11 years ago, we were fully insured, with network health plan, because they were giving us a great rate. Then they realized they're not really making any money on us, and the rate goes up. So then but, and the other trade-off is that then employees basically couldn't go to Aurora. There were a lot of non-network providers that they could go to, but they would have to pay much higher deductibles and co-pays. So there's a trade-off for those deals. Then their rates went up, we negotiated, I was sitting across the table from the president of Network Health, and she would not give us the deal she should, so we switched to Group Health Trust. They gave us a great deal for 2 years, and then they realized, no, this isn't paying anymore. So the market changed so that it no longer made sense for the providers to give a deep discount for exclusivity. And we wanted the extra advantage of letting employees decide for themselves what provider to go to, so we have a very broad network. It's much more favorable for employees. So I think in most cases, it makes sense to be self-funded. But we check that every year. If the market changes and there's a great deal out there, we'll hear about it and at least consider it.
I'll give Mark, I guess solid waste has a couple capable girls that could fill in.
Other points I'd like to point out regarding the health insurance. We also do have a stop loss insurance premium, so expenses over 300,000, we do have stop loss insurance for those. In the 2023 budget, we budgeted to draw about 900,000 out of that fund using some fund balance. We're on pace right now to be substantially under that. Obviously, we still have pending claims and such, but if our trend follows, I'd be surprised if we get half of that amount based on where we're at this point. For next year, even with that small increase, we are looking at, budgeting using about 600,000 out of that fund balance. So we would be drawing out less than 300,000 than what we had budgeted this year. But again, our numbers this year have been returning very positively. And then we do have some increased expenses regarding the employee health clinic. We partner with the city and the school district for the 3 Waves employee health and wellness clinic. Employees who are on the health insurance can go to that clinic at no expense to the employee. That's totally covered under the health plan. And we see a savings there because in essence, we're providing direct services instead of going through corporate entity. So that's been successful, and we hope to continue to grow that usage because again, it helps us control costs overall. Any other questions regarding health insurance? Then a much smaller budget, but we are self-funded in dental insurance as well. We currently have a fund balance of over 700,000 in the dental insurance. We are looking again this year at doing a slight increase to premium, 5%, which would come out to 50 cents per month for a full-time employee on a family plan. We have not raised premiums to our dental insurance rates since 2017. So we've had a significant stretch of time where we've been able to hold the line on costs. And again, just because of overall increased costs and trends, we want to do a small adjustment moving into the next year to again, one, protect that fund balance, but also make sure that we don't have to do significant increases in the future. But overall, that budget is staying very similar to the 2023 dental budget. So, and again, apologize that those separate budgets weren't included in your packet, but I will email all of those out to the entire committee, and they'll be included obviously with the board packet as well.
Thank you, Mark. to the tables organization. Which is part of your. Your.
These are updated from what was included in your package.
Last couple of pages, I looked at with Dr. Topol, and I found that they were wrong on mine. There you got it. The other kind.
Yeah. Well, and I'll give a shout out to Carol in finance. She has been diligently working on trying to make sure that all these documents agree with each other and that they align with all the changes that have been made. So what I'm passing out, one sheet is a fiscal summary showing the net, the individual cost or savings along with the net cost or savings for all the changes included to the table of organization and the 2024 budget, along with
Thank you, Mark.
basically a narrative list of all the changes. It might be easiest, I mean, we can tackle this any way you'd like, but I want to skip over basically for a moment. The staple packet is the entire table of organization that you're familiar with, breaks out by department, all the different positions, net additions, subtractions, changes that may have happened after last year's budget mid-year. That the board would have approved along with any proposed changes for 2024. But before we get to that, it might be helpful to look at this bold typed sheet, changes to table of organization. And this lists out by department in basically a little bit of a narrative form, all the different changes that are included in the 2024 budget by department. Give a minute to take a look at that. And then corresponding then is a fiscal summary, which should include everything that's on that bold narrative sheet, but it breaks it down by position, what's being added or eliminated. And the cost in wages, fringes, or the savings that are being eliminated. Any other costs along with reductions in revenues generated by the positions to come up with a net cost or savings to the county. So if you look on the back of the fiscal summary, you will see overall the executive's budget for next year includes a net increase of 28 positions full-time, a net decrease of 6 part-time positions, and then overall a 24.75 change in full-time equivalents. And then if you look at all those changes end up with a net cost to the county of $168,875. Ultimately, where that leaves us, the last page then of the table of organization, That puts us at a total of 1,111 authorized full-time positions and 47 authorized part-time positions. So I know that some of the department heads are in attendance if there are specific questions regarding position changes, either additions or deletions from each department.
Well, if you can answer enough, I know the sheriff put in for 2 positions and they were both behind. Basically, it looked behind the scenes to try to catch sexual predators. Any reason behind that? I mean, you didn't figure those positions were worthy enough to keep in the budget, or, I mean, the sheriff cut 14 positions over the last 3 years. He asked for 2. We won't give him 2 back.
I think you were involved in those conversations.
The executive isn't here, so we can't ask him.
Well, I can address it. I know the executive's reasons. The sheriff's budget has increased its tax levy each year by quite a bit more than our whole increase in tax levy for the county as a whole. So it's gone up quite a bit. The wages have affected them very much. That's the main reason, no secret to that. The 2 positions the sheriff requested this year would have been in addition to, we already have an increase in the tax levy for the sheriff of almost 1.2 million. And that doesn't include the expected cost of the labor settlement. So that includes no pay increases for deputies, because that's subject to union bargaining, and we haven't reached an agreement yet. That's going to add a substantial amount to that number already, without any new positions. So we just can't afford it, is the main reason. With respect to the 2 specific positions, I know the executive deals, the one related to internet crimes against children. We have 2 excellent people doing that already, probably more than any other county in the state. Which is great. They do great work, but it's also not necessarily Wisconsin or Winnebago County specific work. It's really FBI work. It's not that it's bad or not useful or not necessary. It's that we already do a great job, and it's not really a county function as much as it is a federal function. So they're interstate internet crimes. The FBI does that. They do a great job with that too. That's their job. So since we already have a strong effort in that area, and it's not really a core county function, and we can't afford it. Basically, the reasons with respect to the other position, the sheriff has historically had one of his deputies assigned to the MEG unit. Kind of gets a temporary increase to detective, usually often resulting in a permanent shift to detective. So they spend, a year or 2 in the MEG unit and come out from detective usually. He stopped doing that a couple of years ago during the pandemic, stopped assigning someone. So they believe the sheriff's rationale was he needed that person for patrol. He hasn't had a decrease in his number of patrol officers. Decreases have all been in corrections. So it's the same number of patrol officers. Apparently he reduced the amount of patrolling he was doing in the northern part of the county on Highway 40, 441, whatever that may be. But point is, the staffing of patrol officers, which are what have been historically used to staff the MEG unit, has not changed, has not decreased. You can do that anytime he wants. So the real impact of creating a new detective person, new detective position for the MEG unit would be to free up a patrol officer. And is there plenty of work for the sheriffs to do? I have no doubt there is. But it's just a matter of affording it, not a matter of priority for the MEG unit. The MEG unit should be covered as it always has been covered. So it's really a request to add a patrol officer, which hasn't been decreased. So again, it's just a matter of dollars and cents, and can we afford to do that? The drug issue is a huge issue in the county. No one's denying that. No one's downgrading that or saying it isn't a top priority. But frankly, we also question a little bit whether the MEG unit, those kind of efforts are having any impact. on it because Maggie's been there for a long time. And we haven't seen an impact. I don't know if anyone's done a study on the effectiveness of it. We have some reason to at least wonder whether it's effective. We instead, as a county, have focused a little bit more on what is a core county function, which is to provide services to the community to prevent people from getting in a position where they're overdosing on fentanyl. I mean, that's much more likely in my mind to be effective, to really put money up front. We want to keep people away from that. You know, by the time they're addicted, it's very difficult to affect anything further. Not that it can't happen, and we do obviously very much through public health and human services, put a lot of effort into trying to get people into treatment when they need it. So I think frankly, that's a lot more effective than trying to chase down the suppliers because you arrest one and 10 more crop up. That's what the main unit does. So we really, as a county, our core function is to provide those human services and health services to prevent people, first of all, to get people the treatment they need. They do need treatment, and to find those people. And that's why we've done a lot of things, some of which are controversial, try to reach out to those people for the purpose of getting them into treatment. The other area is, just in human services, providing support services to children and families, and youths. That's where the rubber meets the road, I think, in terms of really having an impact. I think our department, and I've talked to people from other counties, our human services department does more providing baseline services, reaching out proactively to families and people at risk than anybody in the state. I put them up against anybody. So that's our focus. We've added a ton of people there specifically for that purpose.
A question about that, is it possible, because we do so much work with the FBI and the federal agencies with that position with Seawall, detective, not Lieutenant Seawall, sorry, I couldn't remember the title he has now because I know it's changed last year. Is it possible to get funding to say, hey, we're doing all this work to help you guys? I was just trying to think of a way to offset maybe some of that, but I don't know if that's possible, so.
There's a small amount of funding we get for work we do with the FBI, but it's small and it doesn't come close to offsetting. But
Okay, I was just curious. Okay.
Yes, David.
wish we could.
Do we still send kids, do we still send officers to FBI school?
I don't know, do you know her?
I do not know.
I know he went.
No.
Did you and John ever talk to Tara at Damascus Road? That she talks a lot about that Highway 41 being a interstate conduit for sex trafficking. Have you guys ever talked to her?
I'm just not familiar with those discussions. I would guess probably because John talks to everybody, but I haven't been directly involved, so I don't have any personal knowledge of that.
Move on. Move on. All right.
Will either one of these new girls be the new Joe?
No, the new Joan, the person in that position is named Shannon.
Something behind me here.
Yeah.
Warning.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, we are very excited to share with you the results of our study regarding potential changes to time off. And this all started, as you know, with the compensation study. And we have a lot of information to cover. We're gonna try to do so as quickly as possible, and also leave some time for any questions that you may have at the end. Presenting with me today, two HR generalists, Jamie Lurie and Stephanie Steeg. We've seen them before. They have put in a lot of work on this, and very proud of what they've accomplished, and we're excited to share this with you. So today, we're gonna cover the compensation study findings, give you a current snapshot of time off, look at a comparison of counties on the traditional time off model, discuss why to consider a change, look at the timeline that we've been working off of, ultimately present to you the new paid time off proposal, discuss some transition items between our current system to the proposed new system, discuss a little bit of private sector comparison, and then compare some counties that are currently on a PTO system, discuss costs, and then a few takeaways and summary, and then obviously some time for questions. So the compensation study had some findings that a major benefit issue was related to what we offer our employees for time off. Both in 2000 and in 2023, it was recommended increasing paid time off benefits under the current system we currently have, or consider moving to a PTO system. The consultant also determined that sick time is under market, and if staying in our current system, suggested moving to 12 days. We currently offer 8 sick days to employees. The consultant also noted that the county is a bit behind in the accumulation of vacation. And again, in both studies, it was pointed out that benefits are needed to be competitive. We keep talking about retaining and attracting employees. And we also want to allow employees new flexibility with their earned time. So we're coming before you with a recommendation to move to a PTO system due to the administrative ease, simplification, and new flexibility for employees, as the current model has a significant administrative burden. So it's important to note that none of the changes that the consultant recommended for paid time off benefits back in 2016 were implemented. And so this is something that we can actually take steps and change today.
Okay, thanks, Mark. So let's kind of talk about what we currently offer in our existing system. So this is all for a new hire. We operate under the traditional system, so vacation, regular holidays, floating holidays, sick time, funeral leave, etc. All of the time is prorated. So we currently offer 10 vacation days, 8 sick days, an average of 3 floating holidays. There is a difference in this, which we'll talk about at a later time. Average of 2 funeral leave days, 10 fixed holidays. Parkview has 7 for a total of 33. And then if we take out the fixed holidays, then we come to 21 days.
That takes up bereavement as well. So in conjunction with the consultant, HR also did some extensive analysis. We requested time off information from all counties in Wisconsin. When we got responses from 30 other counties, they gave us their paid time off policies and manuals, and we went through them. So it was a 42% response rate. We have 11 counties currently in Wisconsin who responded, who are currently on PTO. The remaining 19 counties that responded to us are on a traditional bucket system that we're currently operating on. And then we had 7 other counties reach out to us and say, hey, we'd like to know what you're going to be doing, because we're going to modify our PTO after you modify yours. So extensive HR research also identified that we're not competitive with our time off plan as it stands today in comparison with other counties in Wisconsin. So we're going to run through first off a vacation comparison. So out of the 30 responding counties, 19 are on traditional vacation time, and 10 are offering more vacation time than we are over a 30-year career, and 9 are offering less. So just to show you that in a picture, We decided to present to you a pie graph to show less and more compared to us. And as this, was noted by the consultant and that we vetted this, that our vacation accruals are a little bit behind. So now we're gonna move to sick time comparison. So for the purposes of our comparison, we took 60 days was our benchmark. 60 days equals 12 weeks, which is what will be needed to cover a full FMLA leave. So out of the 30 responding counties, 15 are on traditional sick time. Out of those 15, 86% of those counties are more competitive than Winnebago County with sick time. 7% are less competitive with sick time than us, and 7% are equal to us. So 73% of all comparable counties are taking an average of 5 years to reach 60 days of sick leave. We're taking 8 years to reach 60 days of sick leave. So again, just to show that comparison in the pie graph, the blue are the counties that are offering more time. The green was equal, and red is less competitive than us. And again, sick time was noted by the consultant, both in 2016 and 2023 to be under market, which was consistent with our research that we performed.
Thanks, Stephanie. So why do we need to change? We need to become competitive with paid time off. Retain and attracting is the goal. We want to lessen limitations on the employee's time, create more flexibility with time off, and finally ease the administrative burden and uniform rules for paid time off. So what do I mean when I say uniforming rules? Departments still hold different rules based on old union contracts that no longer exist for most departments. These rules are now arbitrary and create the silo system that we're trying to break down. Some of these differences are vacation. Accrual rates for some Parkview employees differ in their first year of hire. Floating holidays, depending on what department you're in and what position you may hold, you could have 0, 2, 3, 4, 7, 12, or 13 floating holidays. You could have 7 or 10 regular holidays. 24-hour departments all receive, or most 24-hour departments receive all regular holidays as floating, and some do not. And then there is a different vacation earning schedule for people hired pre-2019 and those hired post-2019. So what have we been up to in HR? In spring of 2023, we performed the benefit analysis that Stephanie had talked about earlier. Also in spring of 2023, we created potential PTO models. This summer, we took that to the executive and along with a committee team and brought our models and refined them. September, we held employee meetings as well as IT meetings. We are here with you today presenting what we have come to. We plan to go to county board in November and then hope to implement 1/1 of 2020. So what is paid time off? Paid time off refers to the time that you are paid when you are not working. Employers can structure paid time off differently depending on what works best for their organizations. Paid time off, we currently operate under the traditional system of vacation, separate from sick family, floating holiday, funeral, mental health, etc. We're looking to merge all of those together into one bank of time referred to as PTO. Okay, so our new proposal, we're looking to combine paid time off into 2 separate banks. The first being the PTO bank, and this would have a max of 480 hours. The second bank would be an ELB or extended leave bank, and there would be no max to that. PTO days are based on your years of service with Winnebago County and employment status. PTO is accrued bi-weekly at the end of each pay period according to an accrual schedule. And there will be no more, quote, rolling over time from year to year. Basically, you just continue building upon the PTO bank. Or do you want to just point out, again, I know Stephanie had mentioned, go ahead.
Let's see if I can go back. One moment, please.
Okay, there we go. So I just wanted to. Oh,
Technical difficulties this morning. Usually I have my button that says present from present slide and it's not on here because we're in Teams, so bear with me. Thank you. And now it's leaving. There you go.
okay, so I just wanted to point out again, what Stephanie had said, so the 480 hours in the PTO bank is not arbitrary, we chose that for a reason. The 480 hours equals 60 days, which also equals a full qualifying FMLA. Okay, so now the new PTO proposal and the numbers. PTO will include vacation, sick family, floating holidays, and bereavement. Employees will accrue PTO when they are in a paid status, so that means any hours that they're working, any PTO hours they may be taking, or ELB hours they may be taking. It will start at 0 and earn up to the max by the end of the calendar year. The year of hire counts as year 1. It will accrue PTO bi-weekly in line with paychecks. Time increases every 2 years until 19 years, so you'll see that it starts out with 25 days of PTO for a new hire and increases every 2 years. Holidays will remain a separate benefit as it currently does. And then this plan allows for flexibility for lateral transfer benefits as well. Okay, so what is an ELB or extended leave bank? Those terms are used interchangeably. So this is a separate bank of time where employees' paid time goes when they have reached the maximum number of hours allowed in their PTO bank, that 480 hours. Anything additional after that 480, so 481, that 1 is going to start flowing into the ELB. In the ELB, again, there is no max to the number of hours that can be housed in there. Employees who have frozen sick time currently will keep their frozen sick time. It will just now be housed in the ELB. Current sick time will go into the ELB, and the ELB is not eligible for the payout. So what can someone use an ELB for? A bank of time reserved to provide income for specific events. This accumulates after PTO has reached 480 hours. So this can be used for an FMLA leave, an ELB LOA, so an extended leave bank, leave of absence, bereavement leave, and military leave.
Thanks, Jamie. So we're also looking
Can
at.
I ask you a quick question while we're on this? Can they? Are they able to use this like before retirement?
Which part?
The
paid
the
time?
last one. The ELB,
ELB, yes. Yeah, the extended leave bank is meant to be accessed to employees for things like Jamie had mentioned with FMLA leave, military leave, bereavement leave, yes.
but before retirement,
Yes.
Okay.
So just updating our loss policy. So under our current policy right now, we're operating under a funeral policy. The funeral policy is narrowly defined for family definitions. Under the current policy, up to 1 to 3 days is given, depending on the definition of family. And if funeral leave is exhausted, employees' only choice is to use vacation, floating holiday, or go unpaid. No sick time is allowed under our current funeral policy. So that's a little bit outdated. What we're looking to do, I'm not going back, is to update our bereavement system. And really to modernize our definitions to human loved one. And then we're going to allow employees to utilize PTO and ELB for a total of 7 days for each loss, rather than 3. And instead of offering a one-time limited benefit, our former funeral days are now included in the annual PTO accrual every year. And ELB, as like I had mentioned, is also allowed to be accessed for the bereavement time that we currently have. So termination and retirement payouts, under our current system that we have now, earned but unused vacation time is paid out upon termination of employment. This excludes 5 days that are eligible for rollover from year to year. So under the new system, it is a graduated payout system, starts, as you can see on the chart, goes up to 240 hours max. So I just want to note that that is not a full payout of the PTO bank that Jamie had mentioned of 480 hours. We would have loved to have paid out 480 hours of PTO fiscally. That's just not responsible at this time. But we'd like to set up a framework for the future. So this graduated payment that you see on the right-hand side really follows what we're currently offering employees for vacation upon leave now. So under the new payout system, PTO payouts follow the amount of vacation weeks we currently provide under the current system. I just want to note and emphasize that employees who currently have frozen sick banks will get paid out that sick time at the rate they were frozen. They are not losing that. A change to this plan is that an employee who would leave Winnebago County service and they were under a year of service with us would not be eligible for a payout. All right, payout eligibility. In order to be eligible for a PTO payout.
Back up a minute. I guess I don't understand what you're saying about. Sick time for people's pay that was frozen, that was many years ago.
Yep, and that's
So
not
what does
changing.
that got to do with today's deal?
We just wanted to make sure that people realize that they're
They
not
were
losing their frozen
recompensated
sick.
for that.
It's eligible, what we're saying is that
You don't
we're
have
not,
to answer, I'm just saying
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
already a done deal.
it is, and the point that we're trying to make is that we're not changing that. So even though the extended leave bank would not be eligible for payout, just like our current sick time is not eligible. Anything that's frozen, meaning it is eligible because of those rules way back when they changed. We're gonna put that time in the extended leave bank. It's gonna be housed there, accessible for employees. But it still gets paid out under the same frozen sick leave rules. So,
Then I have one more question.
Yeah.
You had mentioned something about the county executive. What was that? Did he approve this?
yes, I mean, we had several meetings with the executive to get direction on what he would support.
So he said he would support this.
Yes.
So payout eligibility. We're asking employees to provide and complete a proper notice. How much notice do they need to provide? Hourly employees will need to provide a 2-week notice and complete a 2-week notice. Salaried and professional employees, we're asking for a 30-day notice. The reason for that is that due to our payroll structure, salaried employees are actually paid ahead of what they're working. So we just want to make sure that we're in congruence with that. And then all retirements are changing from 60 days down to 30 for a retirement notice. Completing a proper notice means being in a paid status for all shifts within the notice. So for example, if someone was to be giving a 2-week notice, they worked Monday through Friday, they're Monday through Friday week 1, Monday through Friday week 2, would need to be in a paid status, which means hours worked, PTO or ELB, with again the last day worked in accordance with law. And then anyone who leaves before completing a year's service, as I had mentioned, is not eligible for a PTO payout.
So we're here before you, it's October, and even though, we started the compensation study a long time ago, and we've been talking about different pieces of, things that we might bring before you for consideration. We had other bites of the elephant, as I've referred to it, that we tackled first. Making a change like this in October, which, ultimately, if it goes to the board for consideration in November, we won't be making these changes until January 1st. That doesn't give our employees a lot of heads up as to what the changes are and how that's going to impact them. So we have come up with some transition year kind of exceptions and rules to try to smooth that over. And I should note that for the feedback that we received from employees, we had done 11 meetings and replied to a lot of emails and answered a lot of questions from employees. And we're trying to smooth over some of the bumps that there might be. So for instance, right now, we have employees that under the current system, they expect to get all of that time off for next year on January 1st. This moves us to almost like a paycheck system where you get paid as you go, paid as you earn it. Someone might have vacation second week of January because they were planning on, they paid for it, they're planning on it. Under PTO, they wouldn't have earned enough PTO by that point. So we've come up with some transition rules, but because we really want to make this we want to minimize any disruption that we have to employees. So some of the transition year rules that we've come up with based on that feedback is if any employee has a vacation or floating holiday that they earned in 2023 that they don't use by the end of the year, we'll convert that to paid time off on January 1st. Right now, the way our system works is your first 5 days of vacation gets carried over as vacation. Anything in excess of 5 days goes into your sick time, and floating holiday has to be used, otherwise it's lost. So this variation would just say if you have any vacation or floating holiday that's not used, we're just going to move that all over into PTO. Any sick time that people have, we're not taking sick time away. We're moving those sick time hours and populating that extended leave bank for employees. Now we do have some different rules and ways to access the ELB rather than sick time. But we're going to allow the extended leave bank to be accessed just like sick time next year. Let me explain how that looks. Right now, again, employees get their 8 sick days on January 1st. We have an employee that's sick on January 4th. Under the current system, they've got 8 days to draw. They call it sick. Under a PTO system where you earn as you go, well, again, if you're not, if you haven't earned enough PTO by January 4th, which you would have, in that PTO accrual rate, we're building in time for sick time. But an employee wouldn't have earned enough PTO by that point to take paid time off. That's why we'll let employees access that extended leave bank, just like sick time for this transition, because we want them to be able to access the time that they had accrued previously as sick time. One of the biggest concerns that we receive from employees is that we also have employees that have either planned FMLA needs or they expect to have an FMLA leave right away in the beginning of the year. We also may have some employees who are on an FMLA leave at the end of the year that carries over into next year. Again, on the current system, they would have all their time up front on January 1st. So they, a lot of times, are planning on using all that paid time for that leave. Under a PTO system, again, they're earning as they go, they wouldn't have earned it. So in that case, what we're going to allow is we'll take a look at how much time under the current system they would have earned, and we'll advance them up to that amount next year so it doesn't disrupt their FMLA plans. From a practical standpoint, it puts their PTO balance in the negative, which in future years we won't allow. You have to earn the time before you use it. But again, because of the transition, we'll advance that time, and then over the course of the year as they work, they'll be working their way back to a zero balance. And actually, because the majority of employees will be earning more PTO than they would under the traditional bucket system, they'll actually come out ahead by the end of the year. So that was a significant concern that we heard from employees. Also, speaking about those vacations, like if someone had a vacation paid for in January and they don't have enough PTO, even though it's not an FMLA absence, we would advance up to 80 hours into 2 weeks of PTO if an employee doesn't have enough. So we cover those gaps until people have had some time to build up some PTO. I mentioned that we'll allow access next year to the extended leave bank in the same manner as we do sick time. And then providing and completing a proper notice. As we originally had explained it to employees, we had talked about having to work their entire notice period. Based on some feedback that we received, we decided to change that to a paid status, because especially someone who's, depending when an employee is leaving, they may get sick and legitimately need to not be at work, and they may have the time to cover it. And especially if you're required to give a 30-day notice, if you're sick one of those days, we don't wanna now say they didn't qualify for payout. So as long as they stay in a paid status during that notice period, they'd be eligible for their payout. So we did take a look at some private sector comparisons within Winnebago County. If this plan were to be approved, again, a new hire at the county would have an accrual rate that first year of 25 days of paid time off over the course of the year. Oshkosh Corporation is at 27 days. And then you can see there's a lot of variations, 10 vacation, 4 sick, 15 days PTO, 10 vacation days, 20 days PTO, 12 days PTO. And UW Oshkosh, they're actually, when you take a look at their vacation, holidays and sick, they're at almost 34 days in that first year. And we'll get into
UW Oshkosh has, they get paid all their sick leave.
Mhm.
So it's a huge advantage.
Absolutely. But this at least puts us more competitive. And as Stephanie had mentioned, really the idea with this right now, because we have so many variations amongst employees based on department, old union groups, etc. We don't have a standardized framework of what we offer as a county to employees. Every year, we bring to you the compensation schedule and we do adjustments to it. Well, likewise, if we have a consistent framework to work off of regarding paid time off benefits, things like payouts, I believe it will allow us in the future to make wholesale changes based on market conditions, recruiting, retention issues in this system without having to totally change to a different system. One of the reasons why we're looking at a complete change to PTO is we have so many different variations right now, and it makes it, if not impossible, very difficult to make changes for employees without creating a lot of like winners and losers. And so we hope a standardized format helps us be more competitive. And we'll get into it on another slide later on, but there's also some differences when you look at a full benefit package. There's things that these companies are offering that we don't offer. Of course, there's more to it than just paid time off, but we'll touch on that a little bit. So we took a look at other counties that responded to us, and out of those 30, 11 are on PTO. So this isn't something that's completely new. We would not be the first to do this. It is being done elsewhere. When we look again, just as a quick recap, our current system versus those that are on a bucket system like we are, 56% of those counties offer more vacation time and 86 offer more sick time. So when it comes to how do we get people to come here, how do we attract talent, that's not helping us. How do we retain employees? Again, that's not helping us. If we went to this PTO system compared to the other 11 responding counties, we'd offer the second best PTO plan out of those counties that operate under a PTO model. And keep in mind, other surrounding counties are making the move to PTO. You know, we're looking to, you know, kind of set that bar for other counties. And as Steve pointed out, even being the second PTO plan amongst counties still doesn't put us toe to toe with the state, you know, but at least it positions us in a much more competitive position with some of our counterparts. And again, this is just a comparison showing that if this were approved, you know, we'd be in that upper echelon, not the top. But we definitely put ourselves in a competitive advantage to recruit and retain talent.
Thank you, Mark. We're just gonna transition into talking about cost, because obviously vetting a paid time off package like this We need to make sure that we're fiscally responsible. So moving to the PTO system that we're currently proposing is actually poised to save us some dollars. Because in the current system, we prorate time off upfront. So what happens is we prorate all the time up front, the vacation, the sick, the floating holidays. If someone doesn't stay with us and decides to leave Winnebago County employment, and they haven't earned that time yet, but they've burned through all of it, that money is lost when those employees leave. We attempt to take back that last paycheck, but there are many instances where even though we take back the last paycheck, money is still being bled out when that employee leaves and we can't claw it back. So by implementing a PTO system that starts at 0 and they earn it as they work it, there's nothing to claw back. That would result in a significant savings. The county pays out all remaining vacation, regardless if there's a proper notice or not. We're requiring a proper notice that's going to result in some savings. And we also pay out at 100% regardless of the length of service. So it doesn't matter if you were a 30-year career employee or a 3-day employee. So we're asking that employees before hitting that 1-year anniversary, they would not be eligible for a PO. So again, what are the current costs that we're incurring now? Like we've said, we pay out on vacation time and frozen sick time. We will be planning to pay out on PTO. That's not changing, so that's a stagnant cost and a constant cost. What are the future costs? We can say that a future cost would be the potential of adding and increasing days off. The studies that we've done show that national trends suggest that we're moving in that direction anyway. If you want to recruit and retain talent, you're going to need to pay them in the form of increasing their paid time off. We've heard about shift differentials in terms of summer hours, 4-day work weeks, things like that. I think it's coming. And then what about the productivity cost? We've looked at the data, and the data suggests that, you know, it costs organizations to provide time off, and it costs organizations if they don't provide paid time off or something that's akin to a work-life balance and to avoid burnout. So future savings, attracting and retaining employees. So right now, currently in Winnebago County, it takes 229 shifts to cover 1 vacancy. As of September 26th, so last week, we had 100 vacancies to hire for. So you can imagine that if we can attract and retain folks a little bit faster, we can fill those vacancies a lot more quickly. So with looking at the clawback that I mentioned when employees are leaving before they earn time, implementing a proper notice, and implementing less than 1 year that resulted in a payout, we decided to quantify that for you over 7 months. So the savings impact in 7 months, so we took this, we number crunched from January to July of this year, it would have resulted in $67,117.41 in savings. I just want to say that that's not the total impact, because the clawbacks that we're talking about, so when employees leave us and they have burned through more time than they've earned, we only looked at 4 employees out of 1,100, because we don't quantify that right now. We don't have that in our system yet, but it's coming. So I wanted to say that that number is actually significantly higher. And I just want to also point out that there's no adjustment to the 2024 labor budget because of implementing PTO if this is passed.
Okay, so Mark had touched on a few of the things that other organizations are able to offer that we're not currently offering. And so what are some of those things? So I'll just give you a minute to take a peek. And highlight a few. So short-term disability, referral bonuses, limited work from home options based on the nature of the work that we do here, paid maternity, paid paternity leave, that kind of thing. These are all just things that we're not currently offering. So why our PTO plan is so important. So our employee demographics, we've broken these up into 2 separate sections of sheriff's office and non-sheriff's office, just because there's a different retirement age under WRS for them. So for sheriff's office, 14% of employees are eligible to retire right now. An additional 9% will be eligible to retire in the next 3 years. So that comes to 23% of sheriff's office entire workforce will be eligible to retire from 0 to 3 years under WRS. For non-sheriff's office, 20% of employees are eligible to retire right now. And an additional 7% will be eligible to retire in the next 3 years. That brings us to 27% of non-sheriff's entire workforce will be eligible to retire from 0 to 3 years, again, under WRS. Overall, those two combined brings us to 27% of Winnebago County's entire workforce is slotted to reach retirement age under WRS within the next 3 years. So this is really why it's so important that we need to attract and retain talent in the years to come.
I'd like to just point out that in the non-sheriff's office demographic, I find it interesting that our age range, so 45 to 53-year-olds, so like, is 18%, so the elder millennials, Gen X. And then you match that with our 57 and better age group for employees is also at 18%. That shows you the commitment and the dedication of our employees to Winnebago County. And why it is important to retain if people are thinking about retiring in the next year or so, they're choosing to stay here. Okay, so I think it's important to note that retention also is a big piece of that when we look at retaining and attracting.
So PTO solves the following issues that we're facing right now. First of all, it helps us become more competitive with paid time off. Again, we've hit it every presentation that we've done with anything with the compensation study. We keep talking about retention and attraction being the goal. We also want to lessen limitations on employees' time, give them more flexibility with their time off. And really what I mean by that is one of the reasons why PTO is more valuable, let's say, than the way we do it now from an employee perspective is, say those 8 sick days that you have. Well, you can only use those if you're sick, or you call in and say you're sick when you're not sick. And for the employees who won't call in when they're not sick to use their sick time, that time just keeps building up. So even though they have it, it's really not, I mean, it's a safety net, obviously, it's still a benefit, but you know, we have employees with significant sick banks because they're not using that time. Under PTO, all of their time that they're accruing covers any type of absence, you know, so those accrual rates we build in. If someone's sick, it comes out of PTO. If someone has a need for bereavement leave, it comes out of PTO. If you want vacation, it comes out of PTO. If you don't want to use your time or you want to save it and you want to build time up, let's say for an extended absence, you're planning on something, you can do that. If you're someone who is healthy and maybe you've got an extended leave bank built up already, under the current system, you just keep bringing sick days that you're not going to use and they're not eligible for a payout. Under this system, you're earning those days as PTO. It gives you that flexibility. Maybe that employee chooses to take a little bit more time off for that work-life balance. When we looked at this, we really tried to create a benefit that would have the biggest impact on the largest number of employees. Because if we ask 1,100 plus employees, how do you want to use your time off? We're probably going to have 1,100 different answers. And so really the philosophy behind this, other than attracting and retaining and containing cost, is how can we make it more of a valuable resource to the employees? And we really think that flexibility piece brings that home. Because when someone has a need for medical leave, they can use PTO. Someone, you know, has children, they can use their PTO. Someone's got military leave, they can use PTO. Someone wants to save it in anticipation of whatever, they can save it. They've got a greater capacity to save time. And if people want or need time just for getting away from work and taking care of life, it gives them that option. So we really think about flexibility will help the employees. And then it also eases the administrative burden and provides some uniform time off. As you can imagine, when we went through all those different floating holidays, vacations, regular holidays, when I hire new staff in human resources and we try to explain, oh, this person really gets this. Oh, but now you're hiring for this position, it now gets this. Oh, but this department gets that. It makes it a challenge. Plus, just from a fundamental fairness standpoint, from our employees, why don't I get as much as this employee? Or why does that employee get more? And this really provides us the opportunity to try to standardize things. So some takeaway points. Approving this PTO proposal will conclude the major recommendations under the compensation study. I'm gonna argue that we're always gonna have some opportunities to look at refining our practices. We're always gonna have some opportunities to take a look at what's being offered in the market. If we can offer additional benefits, if we can expand benefits. But this really is a major portion of the comp study that we've never addressed before. So it doesn't mean that we'll never be looking at other things or that, you know, whether it's vision insurance or any of those other things, doesn't mean we're never gonna look at those, but this is the significant piece from the comp study that we want to finish on while this board is still in office. It provides a uniform framework for the future. It sets that curve for other surrounding counties that are looking to make the switch to PTO. It provides flexibility for lateral transfer hiring. And, you know, I say it a little tongue in cheek, but, you know, we talk about Winnebago County being the wave of the future. We haven't really looked at standardizing our time off in, I don't know. And this really helps.
Oh, I looked at it in 2030.
Well,
We just didn't get there.
Yeah, we have looked at, and we looked at it in 2016.
Yes.
But this really gives us an opportunity to modernize how we do time off, to how many counties have already made the change and how private sector is doing time off.
So the elected officials automatically file in with this, if we approve this, do the elected officials automatically get this?
Elected officials would not get this because as elected officials, they don't currently qualify for vacation time. They're paid their salary regardless of attendance.
How does this compare with the sheriff department being a union?
They're still gonna be a little bit of an outlier because they're earning, well, first of all, and the reason being obviously union, they're earning time at a quicker rate than our current employees. I think it puts them much closer to what the deputies are earning. Stephanie, do you remember off the top of your head? I know you crunched some numbers
I
at
did.
one time.
Upon hire, so it's 64 hours upon hire due to a collective bargaining agreement, and it goes up from there based off of their use and service. So 64 to, I believe, 96 to 114. Don't put me on those numbers, but around there.
What would the additional cost of this policy be if we made it all of our employees equal? Well, how much more would it cost to bring them up to the same level as deputies as far as paid time off? I mean, then everybody's equal. That's our goal, right?
Well, yes, but I guess what I point out is we're looking to move away from the system. The deputies would stay under a traditional separate bucket system. And they would stay at, you know, they're roughly not quite 5-year increments to move up in vacation time. I mean, there's personally, and having been under both systems, I'd personally rather be under PTO. I'd rather get, you know, the deputies aren't gonna have the flexibility that PTO affords. They're just still stuck with vacation is vacation, sick is sick. They're not gonna be earning additional days every 2 years. You know, there's things like that they're not gonna have a bucket of time that they can carry over year to year and build up as large of a bank. So it's, I understand what you're asking, but it's hard to answer because it's really, instead of trying to do an apples to apples and make our current system apple match the deputies' current system apple, we're saying we're gonna change for everyone else to a new system. So now we've got an orange over here and the deputies still have an apple. And that's why it's hard to quantify, but there's things with this system that I think are advantageous to our employees that the deputies won't have.
And,
Unless they negotiate for it.
you know, the other point that we talked about yesterday was the highway department gets 10 holidays, but 2 of those holidays are 10-hour days.
Mhm.
Now they're gonna lose those 4 hours. So essentially, to make them whole, they should be getting the same holidays that they got this year. They should be getting the 10 holidays and 2 of those, because they're basically work a 10-hour day. So essentially, that saves the county a lot of money because they don't have to take all that equipment out on Friday. They don't have all the setup time. They feel like they're being penalized because they're losing the 2 days that they're getting paid 10 hours for. Now they're gonna be 8 hours, and now they have to dip into their PPO time to make up the difference, when really nothing changed, other than the fact that we're deciding that the holidays today are only work 8 hours, even though they work 10-hour days.
Yeah, and that's a great question. And that goes back to how we don't have standardization throughout the county. And again, when we try to take all these different systems, you're exactly right, that we'll go to a standardized holiday. We have other departments other than highway that are on different hour schedules. We've got some staff that work 9 hours. I think we have another department that's working 10s as well. Right now, those departments don't get the extra holiday time that highway gets. And when we take a look at what we're offering for PTO accrual, yes, they will, in essence, you could look at it this way, they will get less regular holiday time because it'll all be 8 hours. But they will get PTO to more than make up for that difference. So even though, yes, they'll now have to use some PTO to cover that gap on a regular holiday in the summer, they're earning more PTO than what they are right now. They're getting the total of more time. So, and that, the example you give is the same thing that we have. There's other examples, other departments, you know, this employee's getting 7 floating holidays. Well, now they're not gonna get 7 floating holidays. This group, you know, gets this and that group gets that. And we've tried to come up with a system where part of the aggressiveness of the PTO earnings is to make sure we can basically fill in all those gaps so that employees aren't truly losing. Purely on a paper standpoint, yes, they will get less regular holiday, but they will more than make up that difference in what they earn under PTO.
I was wondering what the reason was why we didn't put action after some of these things. I mean, normally we would put action after some of this, if you know.
Well, for this is just a presentation. Now we're gonna hopefully be presenting this month to the board. And then the action item will come hopefully the next month.
You have a question?
I have a couple points. This kind of reminds me, I was just on the salary, looking at salaries for supervisors, because we had some that were making $0 to $100 a year to making whatever, 7,000 a year. So we were trying to make it consistent, which I love this. My husband is an employee with Oshkosh Corp. And we went through this entirety and had the transition, and I loved the presentation about transitioning people, because I was worried too. I'm like, wait, my husband's gonna lose all this vacation time, you know, we haven't accrued it because you build it up. And it was almost seamless because they worked with us, you know, they're like, yep, you've earned this much, so we're gonna put it in this bank, and it was very similar. And I have to say, I love the system, and the idea that people that aren't loyal enough to stay for longer than a year, they shouldn't be able to take all that upfront vacation time. I mean, they really shouldn't. It should be something that's earned, and I am very excited to see this. It's once again, it worked so well for Oshkosh Corp, and I live under the system now, which I really, I live under it. My husband, I'm 100% it comes back to me, but, yeah, really enjoyed the presentation, 100% for this, and I love the idea that it's standardized. Because I did not realize that we had so many people that were under so many different types of, once again, this is that we're trying to tear down the silos, bring everybody into, we are a county, we're not, we just work for highway, or we just work for the human services or whomever, that we work for Winnebago County. And I think that's an important thing that we're doing here. So thank you for this.
Betsy? Yeah.
I guess I'm finished. I didn't have any other questions.
Don't cut her off.
I already did. Go ahead.
I'm not gonna support it because I think the majority of the smaller companies in the county do not get these kind of benefits. So I won't support it for that reason.
Any other questions? Anybody else comment?
Are we done?
No.
I do have one question. Say I'm a operator in the highway department, and I don't like working nights. And I don't like plowing snow. Would I be able to call in sick or take PTO every time there's a snowstorm?
The rules that departments have in place right now for requesting vacation time, so to speak, pre-approved time off or calling in sick aren't gonna change unless the departments choose to change that. So those systems don't go away. What changes are behind the scenes where we take that time from a time card standpoint. So if a department requires, say, a minimum of a hour call in before shift to be sick, that's up to each department based on their needs. That doesn't change.
Right. Might actually provide people in that position with less incentive to call in sick, because right now, if they call in sick, they're using sick time, which they might not otherwise use if they're normally healthy. Whereas this time, if they call in sick, they're giving up a vacation day. That's how people see it anyway, because it's a day they could use for a planned vacation.
Did we look into like a short-term disability? I mean, it's not for the long-term employees, but when an employee first starts here, and we say he gets in a car accident after 6 months, he's got no time, he gets no pay. We have a long-term disability, which they pay for after 30 days, but they have nothing to get them to the 30 days. So they go 30 days without a check, and if they got a house payment and things like that. I mean, I think if I was coming here today and the way the sick days are set up, I would like to have the option of a short-term disability. It's gotta be relatively cheap, but yet I know for my family, I can provide for them. If I get a broken leg, I'm gonna be off for 6 weeks. I get no pay, and after 30 days or the month that you're in, you don't pay for the health insurance. So not only if it happens on the 15th, the first, they have to pay for health insurance, which a family plan is $2,200, and they have no check. So I think, if you're looking at recruiting people, a short-term disability plan would be beneficial, because I would look at that as how am I gonna make my house payment and pay my health insurance when I basically have 2 days in sick time, and that's all pay I would get.
We've got, like I said, there's definitely other things that we can be looking at to be competitive. We have looked at short-term disability, a few times fairly recently. We haven't had the numbers, interested in signing up, to start that. But like I said, there's other things that we can be doing and looking at. I do know that if we went to a traditional short-term disability, we probably wouldn't be as aggressive as we are with the PTO accumulation rates. But there's some other options out there as well. So like I said, I see this as the end of the big pieces from the comp study, but we always have to be looking at where can we improve, what can we bring in, is it cost effective, is it gonna help us attract and retain? So.
I know when I first started the county, if you were off and you didn't have, they still paid your health insurance, but as health insurance escalated up to the $2,200 mark, if you don't have the paid sick time, now you pay your health insurance, and that's a big burden to take on. $2,200 a month when you basically, you could have cancer. We had one guy out 8 months Well, we took up collections, we donated vacation time to them to try to make them, so we didn't have to basically file bankruptcy. You know, you have to pay your bills, and if you don't have any means of doing that because we have no plan. It's hard, you know.
Right, I would finally, to conclude, I'd like to point out that we also had provided frequently asked questions document. We've got a couple minor grammatical changes and tweaks that we found after sending that out, along with, I'm going to include an appendix showing some of the nuts and bolts of what other counties offer. So ultimately that'll be going to the board in the packet. And then we're also gonna be making that available to employees, because a big piece of any type of potential change like this is that communication piece and trying to help employees understand any potential changes and the impacts. And I really think this would be a valuable, positive step. But right now, for the meetings we've had, there's been a lot of questions, which is natural.
Mark, are you gonna try to do something like you've done with the compensation package, in other words, schedule meetings? So that people can, or schedule days or whatever, so you have people young,
Yes, we've done 11 of those meetings already.
not for this.
For this, yeah, we've done 11 meetings already with employees. And then if this passes, we anticipate we'll be doing more meetings prior to the 1st of January, so that we can try to kind of a PTO 101 and really explain, because we want to help the employees have a successful transition too, and we want them to see the benefits of a system like this, you know, could bring. It won't be successful unless we can really bring it home and have people see it as a value.
I just wanna comment, when you go through cancer therapy, you go through what's called anemotherapy. And through that anemotherapy, you walk in the door and that Dr. Huron, who's the anemotherapist, says, I will now take complete control of all your treatments. And just because I have cancer. And he told me when I walked in the door, and I have an anemotherapy treatment this Friday again, where they do different stuff to me. I just was commenting.
Betty, and thank you, Mark. Pretty much to the end of the meeting. We have one other item. 12 on mine. To set the next meeting date, we've got 2 meetings that are coming up. We've got the one that we normally meet on Thursday, we're gonna change to Friday, November 3rd, because of the budget meetings, and we don't know whether or not it's gonna extend into that Thursday. So I'm taking November 3rd as our next P&F meeting. We have a bonding issue that we have to meet on before the October 17th board meeting. And we need to meet at 5:15 in the boardroom. And we'll go around the back room, do our voting, and deal with Justin from Baird. So if it's all right with you, we'll just make the next meeting date October 17th at 5:15 at the boardroom before our board meeting. And then as we're going through the budget process, we'll meet again for the P&F meeting like we're doing now, but on Friday, the 3rd of November. Okay, everybody else? Did you have a question?
I may not, or I probably gonna not be there by 5:15.
we'll drag it out a little bit for you.
I'll get there as soon as I can.
Okay, fine. We need a quorum. And whatever we can get together, and we can be there fine. Okay? Thank you.
What did you make a comment about Mark's human resources? You made a comment about why we didn't take him next.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
No,
I just wondered why we didn't take him next. Okay.
We've gone through all of the lists. Mark, you don't have anything else? Oh, right.
I'd like to move to adjourn.
Adjournment.
Well, I don't understand why Martha doesn't. And move to adjourn also. I second.
Okay.
But I still don't understand it.
Aye.
Aye.
I.